Yo, what are you doing right now? We are going to get real about men's issues, who Jesus is, and who we are as men in Christ. We're going to hear Trey, Jeremy, Michael, and Brad break it down. These guys call themselves the Cussin Christians. All right, guys, what is going on?
How do we know that?
Funny.
Dude, it is.
How do we know that Jesus didn't cuss?
It is so funny.
We
were having that conversation.
Brood of vipers.
Here we go.
Whitewashed sepulchers.
You know, he says if your brother says to him "raka," which some people would say that it was like a slang, like a derogatory slang, like almost a cuss.
Well, the definition of shit, and this is a true story.
Oh gosh. The word Paul uses is likened to shit when he says rubbish in Philippians.
Finally,
That's
we're getting
true.
the proper definition, though. Thanks for that.
You and I've talked about.
They used to haul manure, in the hull of the ship, and when you haul manure, it'll continue to degrade, and it can catch on fire. Mm-hmm. So they would put it on top of the ship with an acronym SHIT, store high in transit. So they would store it up high, and they called it shit.
Well, that's usually what I'm talking about when I say it.
You got to store high.
Yeah. If people look at me funny, I'm like, dude, you don't know what that means, obviously.
That's right, you don't.
My daughter slept on the top bunk, so they were shit last night.
My kids were little shits yesterday too. So
See, there you go.
Holy cow,
Takes
we're
on a
getting
new
it
meaning.
going. All right. I'll take this all day, man. What an opportunity. We're having our last event of the year tonight at the King Center for the Performing Arts in Melbourne. This is our 5th event, starting in 2022. Mm-hmm. And we got this guy, Mike Donehey, and 10th Avenue North is going to be here performing. Y'all been off the road for a while. Now you're back on. A lot of emotions going on with you guys. Welcome to join us. We just want to hear how you're doing. Back on the road again, what that's like for you with some new faces. And just as we're getting through and finishing our year up with our events. We just had our big one a few weeks ago in Gainesville with Tim Tebow and Zach Williams. That was so much fun. We're going to close it out tonight. We're going to make a big splash here on the Space Coast with you guys. We're just so excited you're here. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. I played football against Tim Tebow last year in a two-hand touch.
Ooh.
And it quickly got more than two-hand touch very quickly.
You look like you'd be quick. Are you quick?
I'm pretty quick.
That's what I figured.
I blitzed him on a 4th down. He didn't like that. And we're doing that now. We're doing that.
Okay.
And then the next play, he picked me up and ran me 100 yards away, like a little baby in his arms.
He's a big dude.
He's strong like
He's
bull.
big. When he was here in June, I went up on stage and someone took some pictures. I had about an inch on him in my height, right? But then I put my arm around him. It was like,
dude, yeah.
what is that? That
was before and after is what that was.
whatever.
You guys think he's roiding?
No
way.
he might be doing TRT. I mean, he's 40 at this point, so
Jeremy played football. He's like,
you can tell when it starts to get lower. You're like, nah, I want it back.
Well, number one, we're thrilled you made it down. I know you were driving through bad weather last night with a Hurricane Helene that kind of made her way up there. We've been praying for the folks in the northern part of Florida. They got hammered pretty hard a lot. Thomas's wife is stuck in Asheville, North Carolina.
She's currently being rescued by her father, who's driving toward her, but all the roads are all closed. And
40's down at
it's wild, dude.
Pigeon River gave way, so US 40.
Those areas, they're not set up at all for a storm like that. Like here, all our lines are underground and buried, and the houses are up to code.
People said, "Are you guys going to do that show in Melbourne?" I go, "You guys don't know Florida people."
No.
I mean, what kind of
party
storm
during
is this?
hurricanes.
Yeah. I've been. Well, what do you want to know about 10th?
Man,
it's a pretty open-ended question.
I know. Well,
when did you guys disband? Like, when did you guys separate out?
So here's the deal. We started in 2000.
Okay.
So 10th Avenue North has now existed for 24 years.
Isn't that
which
crazy?
Is nuts to think about. And my drummer and I had started the band together in 2018. He had always said, when my oldest daughter starts middle school, I'm quitting. Mm-hmm. Or retiring might be a better word. And sure enough, he did it. Mm-hmm. And then a year later, our piano player, he actually moved back down to Jupiter with his wife because he said, when we have kids, we're going to get off the road. And so they wanted to have a kid, so they retired, started an organic farm down in Jupiter.
Nice.
What's it called? All of our listeners.
Legal?
What is the name of their farm? It's called...
Did you just say legal?
I should know.
That's all right.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Subtitles.
It's off Indian Town Road. It's in Jupiter. Oh, man. Okay.
We'll tag them.
Yeah.
We'll tag them.
They have like a cable TV show called Farm to Table that they filmed some episodes of growing food and stuff. So
That's cool.
anyway.
Cool.
And then in 2019, right at the end, my wife came to me and she said, "We have 4 daughters now. So pray for me. I have 4 daughters. It's amazing."
I hope you're saving your money, dude.
There's a lot of emotions happening in my house. My joke is that someone's always crying in my house, and sometimes my girls are crying as well. And you know, people are like, "When are you gonna have that boy? Are you praying for that boy?" I was like, "No, God obviously gives girls to a family that already has a man in it. Why would I pray for that boy?"
Nice.
Yeah, you like that?
Yeah.
Well, I have 2 boys, so I'm trying to figure out what God's telling me.
You know, it's cool. It's cool. Gotta,
Keep taking that
Man up.
TRT.
yeah, get some TRT, bro.
What went through your heart and your mind when she said that?
So yeah, she said, "I need you to come off the road." And we had a talk a couple years before where we cut the number of shows we were doing in half.
Right.
Same kind of conversation. And I mean, to be perfectly honest, a big part of me went, "Oh no."
Now, what do you do? Go work at Wendy's?
My first question wasn't, can I give up the band? My first question was, can I make money to support us another way? As a dad and a husband, that's what you're thinking. And had no idea a global pandemic was about to incur. And I'm so glad we went into the pandemic having decided we're retiring. And so it didn't feel like it was a bummer because we were going to do this big farewell tour and then it all got canceled. And so I've started the pandemic just like, where am I? What's going on? But I at least knew that the pandemic didn't force me to give up the band. I had already laid it aside and said, I'm not going to sacrifice my family on the altar of this band, you know? And, but dude, yeah, it's like, what am I going to do? How am I going to, and spent the first year of that pandemic kind of going, I have no idea what to do, so kept writing songs because I don't know what else to do. Songwriting is like my therapy. Yeah. And
Did
then
other people record them for you?
So the guy who's now in my band, Thomas, he was in my bubble, right? My safe bubble, I guess. And he had a home studio, so I'd go over to his house and we'd work on songs. That's basically what I started doing. And I wrote another book, and and then fast forward, started doing stuff as Mike Donehey. And the second I got back out on the road as Mike Donehey, I went, I don't like this, because the first show I ever played was with a band in college. I had done this is wild. I'd done my speech class. My assignment was how to teach someone how to play guitar when you're not that good at guitar. That was my speech.
Nice.
And this kid in my class goes, "Dude, that was great. You want to play at a coffee house?" I go, "Did you not hear my speech? I'm not that good at guitar." And he goes, "No, it's fine. You should do it. I'm in charge of the coffee house at PBA." And the night before, I had just jammed with 2 buddies in a dorm room for the first time, because I was late starting guitar. More on that. But so I go, "Well, can I bring a band with me?" He goes, "Yeah, that'd be even better." And so the first thing I ever did behind a microphone in front of people was with a band. So when I got out on the road solo, I just like, I don't like this at all.
Yeah.
But I couldn't stop writing songs because it's just, I'd learned to deal with my issues and my fears and my questions, my anxieties. That's how I process them. There's this verse in Psalm 49. It says, I listen to wisdom, I incline my ear to wisdom, and with the music of the lyre, I will solve my riddle.
That's cool.
Okay, so that's how I view songwriting. It's like solving the questions that I have. So I couldn't stop that. And then once I started getting out and playing, I went, oh, I need a band. I mean, I can do this solo, but...
And this was about a year after you guys stopped so?
Yeah, this was probably...
21, 22.
This was probably going into the end of 22.
Gotcha.
So I kind of spent 2 years just kind of... I co-wrote a lot of songs for other people's projects. I did a lot of that.
Yeah.
Did a lot of speaking events.
Right.
Because I've written 2 books. So, but then just couldn't stop doing the songs. And then
it's inside of you, man.
Yeah. It wasn't until, but I couldn't come to my wife and go, I think I want to get the band back together. Ooh. You know what I'm saying? And then last year, my wife came to me. We call it
She needed you out of the house.
Yeah, she said, you've been home for 4 years. Actually,
you're in your socks and underwear.
There is a truth that,
Cheetos.
there is a truth to having some absence between you. But she actually enjoys my company, I'm pleased to say. And still, after 16 years of marriage. But she said, hey, I know this is crazy, but I think you should get 10th Avenue North going again. And I said, wait, well, you said I had to come off the road. And she goes, our girls are all in school full time now. It's a totally different thing. I'm not drowning in diapers and formula and all that. Yeah. Now she's just being berated by teenagers, which is a different experience.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, even driving to bus call last night, my 13-year-old going, Dad, you're supposed to get off over here. Do you know you need to get in the right lane? Yes, I know how to drive. I know.
Oh,
Nice.
And you brought them down.
Yeah, I brought my 2 oldest.
Brought your 2 oldest
for
down
this weekend. Yeah.
Great to see them. I bet that's special to them for the come with you.
Yeah, when they were little, they lived on the bus.
Right.
They don't really remember it. But yeah, we try to. I even said to my wife last night, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to enjoy or regret this. And she goes, it'll be hard, but these are the moments, that your daughters will look back and go, that was awesome.
Well, we were eating lunch a minute ago. We had a conversation with them that you said Amy Grant taught them how to shoot an arrow or
archery.
Archery, right? And they didn't remember. That was Amy Grant.
Yeah.
So it's a new dynamic for her I've never even heard.
Yeah, Amy hosted a camp at her property. And we didn't even know it was her property because the girls would get picked up in a bus. Like they'd take them to the school bus and they'd drive all the kids over to this property. And they're like, yeah, Miss Amy was teaching us archery today, blah, blah, blah. I go, oh, okay. And then we show up on the last night. They had a parent night and we pull up and Amy Grant's in her boots directing traffic to park. And I actually had played a couple events with Amy, so I knew who she was. And I go, guys, the Miss Amy you're talking about with archery, is that Miss Amy? They're like, oh yeah. I go, okay, cool. Yeah, it's Amy. And that's a testament to her. She's always like that, very, very approachable, very what you see is what you get. She's the best.
It's cool.
Did you grow up in a church?
I did.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah. And I grew up going to Christian school. So I'm still in recovery over that. No.
Donehey, is that Irish?
There's a debate about it.
Come
It's
on,
either
it's
Irish or
isn't it?
Scottish. My dad always insisted it's Irish. Now there's some information surfacing that maybe it's Scottish after all,
Oh, I have a great time.
Yeah, Scottish is like that, right? Like, oh, Shrek, but then the Irish, you've got different kinds of Irish. You've got Southern Irish, is very lilting and what's not like that. And then you've got Northern Irish, a little bit harsher, like coming on the road into town. I did a lot of touring with Wren Collective, right, mate? So it's more like that.
Oh, I love it.
Nice.
Anyway, I digress. So I started playing guitar. The reason I was terrible at guitar going into college was I never played an instrument until my senior year of high school.
So you're an athlete?
Am I an athlete?
Come on,
Give
dude.
me
Yeah,
a
look at
ball.
him.
Let's
I mean,
see.
Yeah,
Mitch told us
Tim
Tim Tebow story.
He edge rushed
That's what I
Tebow,
mean. So you
man.
weren't a band geek then.
I was not. I was a geek. I did theater, and then I did sports. So I did soccer, basketball, and theater. That was my. But I came in.
I'm glad you're a musician now.
So my senior high school, I was even thinking maybe I'll play soccer because our soccer team was really good. We had guys who went on to play professionally on my high school soccer team. And but then my senior high school, we were on our way to school and we flipped the car at 50 miles an hour and I got thrown out and broke my head and broke my back at 2 places. And when the paramedics got there, they actually tended to my 2 buddies first because I'd been thrown out of the car and I was in a pool of my own blood. And I guess with paramedics, they teach you
Triage.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so
I'm an X1.
yeah, they hit me with the paddles, got my heart going, threw me in the ambulance. My heart stopped 2 more times.
You were in high school or college?
It's my senior high school. And so this is the wild part. You know, the third time my heart stopped, I was actually transported to heaven. I saw Jesus face. No, I didn't actually.
I was ready for it.
That sounds like Gary. Yeah, Gary Miracle said, that 7 minutes I was gone, I didn't see nothing.
Yeah.
I woke up and I better get back up, better get in gear.
Now, if I had held that story, I could sell a lot more books if I held that story. That's the truth. So, but I did. My heart stopped 3 times, and I'd broken my back in 2 places, so I had to lay on my back for 2 months. Miraculously, I didn't need surgery. I didn't, just had to wait for the compression fractures to heal. Mm-hmm. But I asked for a guitar, waiting around, sitting on my bed, and that's how I started playing guitar.
Somebody had a plan for you, bro. Seriously.
Yeah,
because most people don't survive ejections. It's like 90-some%.
Oh, I know. And the craziest part about it, because people, you should have worn your seatbelt, and I'm even rarer. If I had worn my seatbelt, I would have died because the roof of the car was collapsed down into just my seat.
Wow.
It's pretty nuts.
Wow. That's gnarly.
So I guess I'm supposed to be here.
Yes, sir.
Well, and the theater, you're a great speaker. I love watching and listening to you talk as part of your music. And the theater prepared you for that. Does the Lord had you in that to prepare you for that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Did your dad say, you're studying what?
A testament to my parents.
Can I take your order?
It's so funny because, I went into college going, I'm going to be an actor. And then halfway through go, actually, I'm going to do an even more stable career move and go after music. I mean, and a testament to my parents, they really embody we just want you to do what you love.
That's so cool.
Because we know as long as you're doing what you love, you'll be happy. So...
Well, I think the success rate for people making a living doing music is less than those getting thrown out of a car.
And what's crazy is my sister is also in a full-time band.
Oh, cool.
In an Americana genre. And we just played in Knoxville last weekend, and I was looking at the front of the theater, and then I saw on the glass a poster for her band. So
nice.
we're playing in some of the same venues, and neither of us really pursued music.
Mom and dad musical at all?
Not really.
No?
No. It's super weird.
Yeah.
Super weird.
So when your wife tells you you're going to put the band back together and you start calling the guys, how's that go?
Well, so what happened, we got asked, my wife had just said, I think you should bring 10th Avenue North back. And then Mercy Me called and said, hey, come do our cruise and reunite the guys who were in the band.
That's what you were talking about.
That's how I met him.
Okay.
So I call the guys, they all go, oh yeah, I do a cruise. And then I go, well, let's do like a month-long reunion tour. No. All 4 of them.
Just stiff arm from the beginning, huh?
I don't. No, they all go, I retired from touring. I don't think you understand. I'll do this one thing because it'd be fun, but I don't want to tour again. But then they all came to me eventually and said, but we think you should keep doing it. Well, we think you should get some new guys because we can sense that you are still wired to do this.
And that had to give you some peace.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
So my guitarist, and he goes, "Hey, listen, I have no interest in touring again." He's actually in Jupiter as well. He goes, "I have no interest in touring, but I'd love to keep writing with you." Nice. So actually, a couple of the new guys, we flew down to Jupiter and did a week-long writing camp with my old guitar player.
Right.
And songs we're going to play tonight, we co-wrote together.
Wow,
that's cool.
People don't realize what a grind it is to tour because people are listening to this going, well, of course I'd want to tour and be on stage and be a professional musician, but they have no idea what the other 22 hours of the day look like.
No,
I saw those 10 or 12 people getting off that bus a little while ago, and their hair's all matted up against their head and all that.
I always say a tour bus is really sexy if you're comparing it to a car, and way unsexy if you're comparing it to a house for 12 people.
Okay.
Yep.
It's like, okay, that's not quite. And you can't poop in the toilet.
That's so true, man.
Because
you got girls
you
on the.
Can,
you can, but
where do you think it goes?
That's true.
Well, but also everybody outside the door knows what just happened.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's just it's a very strict. I've not been on a bus where it is allowed. Now some people. Now this is the Cussin Christians podcast, so some guys like to hot bag it. That's what you call it. And I've seen that. There was a time, I won't name the artist, but we were at a festival and they had this monsoon of rain come, and the buses are all set up, and all of a sudden the water's up by the tires of the buses, and we just see these bags
Hot bags?
floating, and it was because they had dropped them outside there. Because you're stuck in your bus,
That's right.
pouring rain.
You got to do what you got to
can't
do.
make the 200-yard walk to the porta potty. So, and they had dropped them outside, and then they were all floating away.
That's the glamour of touring right there.
The thing
Pretty
is,
good, pretty wonderful. Love it.
So when they said when he came to you and they said, "This is still in your blood. You need to go do it," and then how long did it take to get everybody together to get rocking?
That's where you never want to feel like you're just making something happen because you can't let it go.
Right.
And I definitely wrestled with that because I go, am I bringing this back just because? But I mean, the harder thing to do for me was to bring 10th Avenue North back when we did. It actually would have been a whole lot easier just to be a solo artist, do speaking gigs, do that. So I was like, look, God, you're going to have to bring the people, man.
Yeah.
And dude, the guys who are in the band now, I mean, it really just feels like God just picked them up and dropped them in my lap. Said, here you go. So
Were these long-term relationships that you already had, or pretty, Monty and Thomas?
No, Thomas, him and I have been really good friends. Here's a really weird story. Thomas and his wife moved to Nashville in like 2017, and they moved in with my best friend. He has this house, and then he had this 1,000 square foot studio underneath the house that they converted into an apartment. And I go down there when my friend buys the house, and I'm like, man, I feel like I've been here before. I've been here before. But it all looked different. I was like, and it's in one of those neighborhoods where all the houses look the same. So I go, maybe I just think I have. I go, so who did you buy this house from? He tells me. I go, no way. And my best friend in Nashville had bought the house where our first two 10th Avenue North records were mixed. Was in that downstairs basement of that mix engineer who owned that house. And then Thomas and his wife moved in and lived in that studio for several years. So, and then Thomas's wife actually went to work for us as 10th Ave before we took the hiatus. And we had actually signed, Thomas has a music group called Land of Color. We signed their thing to an imprint on Sony. So we had been friends a long time. But all the other guys have been just... I knew Ben because he helped start for King and Country, and our bass player. And so I had, seen him at festivals and shows all over. But the other guys, were pretty recent.
Man.
So a lot of coincidences, I guess.
You
you either I feel like you either see God's hand in everything or you see his hand in nothing.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
And it's sort of
There's
like,
no way that was a coincidence. Like I don't believe in those at all.
I don't
think
either.
Everything's there for a purpose, moving in a way that's part of God's plan. And it's just too low a probability. One, you survive the car crash, and then you learn to play the guitar because of it, and then you're in a band that takes off. The band then wishes you back in. And then your next guy was recording in the studio or lives in the studio that you had before.
Yeah.
What's the odds of that?
Yeah,
That's-
and
God's way of remaining anonymous.
Well,
That's
you
what I say.
and you want to stay grateful and believe that God's providence is over your life and what you're doing, but you also don't want to be one of those people who you kind of use God to validate what you're doing. And you're like, I remember when I was first writing songs and I would go to people, I go, God gave me this song. God gave me this song. And they go, yeah, he didn't want it anymore.
Nice.
And so you want to be careful how you use that. But yeah, when you step back, I mean, I see a whole tapestry of mercy over my whole life.
Yeah.
And the thing about, and different than rock and roll bands and the partying and the drugs and all that.
No, we do that too. Yeah. Big parties, huge parties. American parties.
All right, Diddy.
I'll stop.
But you guys are in ministry. That's the difference. And you guys, how do you, and I've always wanted to ask, how do you guys stay up? I know there's probably a lot of prayer and I see music for me is my way of pushing everything aside. I get on my bike, I listen to praise and worship, and it takes me to a different place where everything is drowned out, everything is pushed away, all the cares of life. That's what music does for me. heals my soul. How do you guys stay up to be able to portray that? Every time I look at one of your videos or something, you guys are always ministering. It's not, you can tell the difference between some, and I'll be honest with you, some Christian artists that are there to get a check, and then there's some that are like 10th Avenue North that are ministering to people. And when Trey came back from the cruise, that's exactly what he said.
Yeah.
He said, I met this guy, Mike Donehey, and I'm like, okay, tell us about him. And he did. And he said it was powerful. So that's
Amazing.
That's a testament for what you're doing. And one of the reasons that, Trey wanted to bring you guys down here.
Well, so I think anyone who follows Jesus is in full-time ministry. Right? Like, what is the ministry that we're called to? Whatever your occupation is, everyone who follows Jesus is called to two forms of ministry. That is, go into all the world and make disciples. So we're all called to make disciples, and we all have been given the ministry of reconciliation. That's what Paul says. So I go, my ministry is not music. My ministry is reconciliation and to make disciples through music. Right? And so when you get that into people's brains, a huge disservice we've done in the church is to paint this picture that the people who receive a vocational check from the church are the ones doing full-time ministry. Right. Paul says it's actually exactly the opposite. He says our job as ministers, as full-time ministers, is to equip the saints to do what? The work of the ministry.
Yeah.
So it's almost like exactly the opposite of the people that are full-time check receipts. It's like I'm trying to reduce the language. If you're in full-time vocational ministry, your job is to equip the people to do the full-time ministry, which is the rubbing shoulders, bringing reconciliation to every corner of the earth. So when I take the stage, it's like that's part of it. But when I'm backstage with the security guard, that's part of it.
Exactly.
If I'm meeting a fan, that's part of it. I can't tell you how many, over the last 5 years since we retired, I've met with at least one or two independent artists a week for coffee. He'll just message me. And it's like, why do I do that? Because I believe I'm here to make disciples, not to make number ones.
When you say independent artists, you mean independent Christian artists or just independent artists in general?
Oh, in general. Yeah, I get all kinds of fun people just curious about music industry and stuff like that. So
there's probably usually a window you can bring up your story, and
there's some overlap. Yeah, wherever you are.
Great.
Yeah, and that's another thing I kind of struggle with is I don't make Christian music. Music is not Christian. Like, is that guitar part Christian? Is that drum beat Christian?
Yeah.
No, the lyrical content of something can be Christian, but Paul does not say, whatever is Christian, think about such things. He says, he's like, don't be so reductive. Now you're like tuned out. You're not actually using the Spirit to evaluate things. He says, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is noble, whatever is excellent, whatever is praiseworthy. He goes, no. I want you to actually be like paying attention to everything, and not because if the second you go, this is Christian music, what you just did is anything that isn't labeled Christian music, you've just labeled non-Christian.
That's right.
And that's a terribly reductive way to think of things, where I'm looking for God in everything. I'm looking for God everywhere. And I wouldn't be surprised, and I'm not surprised, when really Jesus-saturated truths comes out of people who don't claim to follow Jesus, because the rain falls on the righteous and the unrighteous. So suddenly, and this again, I'm given this picture that we no longer believe the Spirit of God is contained to a building. That's Acts 17. God's Spirit no longer dwells in buildings made by man, but we are being built together into a dwelling place of His Spirit, which means we had a record called Cathedrals, and the last song was called All the Earth is Holy Ground. And the idea was, I'm trying to get people to stop thinking about going to church and start believing that they are the church.
Come on.
And one of the things that happens is now I don't divide things into secular or sacred. I view everywhere I go become sacred because I brought the Spirit of God with me. That means if I go into a bar, that bar is no longer secular. It's a place that I've just brought the Holy Spirit into. Right?
That's a great philosophy.
And it changes the way I view the decisions I make because I go, no, I don't get to take time off from the sacred.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's like now everything gets to become sacred. Sitting with your buddies, eating wings, drinking a beer is sacred.
Yeah.
You know?
What you're doing, what we're trying to do is share the gospel, the good news. We are in whatever venue we're in, whether it's a bar or a gas station or whatever, and I try to do that. I am so free now in my thinking about who Christ is and who he is in me that I can do that. It's never been that way.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the fact that you are doing that, and that's what you said, because there's so much freedom in that for guys.
100. You know, and Jesus told a parable that I believe he's articulating the gospel, and we reduce it and call it the parable of the prodigal son. It's so strange to me when Jesus entitles something and then we think we need to change it, because he doesn't call that the story of the prodigal son. He says, let me tell you a story about a father and two sons.
Right.
So the title of the parable should be A Father and Two Sons, according to Jesus. And in that parable, he articulates the gospel. He says there's two ways you can miss it. What are the two ways? One, you don't think you need Jesus. Two, you think you're so bad you can't have Jesus. And the gospel undermines both things. It says everybody needs him, everyone can have him. And, you know, we oscillate between those two things. When we screw up, we become the prodigal, and when we're doing well, we become the older brother, self-titled, or entitled, you know, self-righteous, and we're going... I just did a video on my Instagram where I say I don't play music for God anymore.
Saw that.
And you know, of course, I'm being cheeky, and people just
Freak it out.
They freak out.
I love it.
And I go, because when you think about I'm doing all of this for him, for God, you end up like that older brother going, look what I'm doing for you. Did. Where's my calf? Where's my party? And the father says, I am the reward. What are you talking about? Yeah. A reward. And so Tim Keller says in his book, Prodigal God, which if you haven't read that book, it's an incredible little book. He says the older brother and the younger brother are actually guilty of the same sin. They both want something other than the father to make them happy.
You know, I've never really thought about the older brother.
Nobody does.
Story. I've never
because
really
that's the prodigal son.
That's really the most important part of the story, because what incites the parable? Jesus says there's a bunch of Pharisees grumbling that he eats with tax collectors and sinners. So he begins to teach them in parables. So you always have to look at, like, what is Jesus responding to? He's responding to self-righteous people being mad that he forgives people. So when it ends on the older brother with a big question mark, because you don't hear, does the older brother come in? Does he reconcile? We don't know.
No.
Because Jesus is pushing it right in the Pharisee's face. He's going, that is you.
Yeah.
That's you. And you need to change your heart, bro.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself.
I love how Jesus just pokes at the Pharisees all through the New Testament. It's just...
You know, I just responded to someone on Instagram last night. They said, I have such a hard time with the Bible because I was surrounded by people who used it as a weapon against me.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, I totally understand and I agree, and I'm encouraged that that's exactly who Jesus was having issues with when he was ministering to.
Interesting. I mean, that's exactly why I turned my back on everything, because, I mean, people started, the church I was going to was Pentecostal, and if you did this, you went to hell. If you did that, you went to hell. And I was like, well, man, if I just wake up, I'm going to hell, it seemed like, you know. So why go to church? And if I wasn't going to be good, just go enjoy yourself, because you're going to hell anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then 20 plus years later, I meet this guy and figure out what it actually meant. You know?
Until you start realizing living in disobedience to God is the hell.
Come on, yeah.
And Jesus said, my commands are light. They're not burdensome. And isn't it funny? Because I grew up in Christian school, and I grew up thinking it was backwards. The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. I've come to give you life abundant. I go, no, that's backwards. The thief comes to give me a good time. And Jesus comes to steal, kill, and destroy my fun. Well, that's why, you know, the thief is called a deceiver, among other things, because he flips the script and makes us think we're missing out.
That's why people think that Christianity is no fun. I have more fun now than I've ever had because I'm myself. This is how Christ made me. I can't apologize for that, but I've changed it. And I've told Trey this 1,000 times. I said, I can do whatever I want, Mike, but Jesus has changed what I want. And so I'm in that mode now where it's like, I shock these two.
Yeah.
You know, so I have a buddy, he's talking about, sorry, I'm cutting you off.
That's all right, go ahead.
He talks about following Jesus is easier.
It is.
He said, Jesus said it. My yoke is easy. My burden is light. But that's a little misleading because it's hard to eat right. But it's hard to eat right, but easier not living with chronic disease. He goes, it's hard to say no to pornography, but it's easier living in fidelity with your wife, right? It's harder. So it's like I hear people say it all the time, choose your hard.
Okay.
Right.
And choosing the hard of Jesus actually is easier than choosing the easy of the world, because the hard on the other side of the easy of the world is so much harder. It's like building your house on sand is actually way harder than building it on a rock.
This is fantastic. Mike Donehey, 10th Avenue North, joining us. You had something on Instagram the other day that intrigued me. I wanted to ask you about it. And you talked about how either frustrated you get when you start reading the Bible, but it always turns into comfort. Am I quoting that right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, the Bible starts irritating.
That's what you're irritated.
Greatly irritating before it's deeply comforting.
Yeah.
Especially in the places where you're living out of sync with what God would say.
Yeah.
You know, and to kind of jump on what you're saying, Revelation 22, it begins really irritating. It's like outside are the dogs, the sorcerers, the idolaters, the sexually immoral, the greedy. You're like, dang, this sucks. And then he goes, but inside are those who've washed their robes in the river. So the Spirit and the bride say, come. The Spirit and the bride. Who's the bride? The church. So who's the church inviting? The ones outside.
That's right.
And so at first I'm so annoyed. Oh, you mean God's going to exclude me? It's like, no, God's going to welcome you in just as you are. There's one caveat. You got to dip in the river because that's the only way you get clean.
Right.
And isn't that great to know? That's actually, I have to humble myself and dip my robes. Yeah, isn't that great? Because it means you don't have to earn it.
Come on, man.
So, yeah, the Bible in so many places is very deeply irritating until it's deeply comforting.
I love that. I would listen to that like 3 times. Man, I'm just tickled to death you're here. You got a big schedule coming up. You're going to be in Myrtle Beach tomorrow. Then you're going up to D.C.
Museum of the Bible. Yep.
Museum of the Bible. How cool is that?
Yeah. I mean, it's why I brought my 2 daughters on this run, because my eldest went there on a field trip last year, and it was pretty cool. She came back on, yeah, the Museum of the Bible is amazing. There's so much I didn't get to see. I wish I could go back. I go, we're playing there. You are? I wonder if I could go. And it's the day before her birthday, you know? So
that's going to be awesome.
That's awesome.
And if you have a daughter who's going, I love the Museum of the Bible, you go, okay, I will take you there. I will do
that's right.
what I can.
You don't say no to that one.
Yeah. You summed it up about the building. And one of the reasons, and you talked about secular versus Christian, and it hits home with me because we decided to do these events in what would be considered a music hall where people will come to play music, and we're going to put Jesus there. And in our world today in church, I mean, if I was to host this at a certain church, there might be people from another church that won't even go to it.
That's right.
Because, so we're trying to make it these events where we can really recognize and gain awareness for our charitable partners. Tonight is the Christ is the Answer Rescue Mission. And we just had the funding, and we just built the Women's Rescue Mission. You're going to have about 60 residents there tonight to celebrate, and it's going to be awesome. And then something near and dear to my heart is the Brevard Alzheimer's Foundation and the caregiver support team. We lost my mom to Alzheimer's about 2 years ago, and they've just been a vital part in this community for us.
We're still, I just pray tonight, after whatever's said and done, we could just expand our idea of what worship is.
Amen.
Expand our idea of what ministry is. Expand our idea of where God is. Because we love to see where God isn't. We love to see what ministry isn't. We love to see what worship isn't. And it's just like, man, what if we just started seeing God in more places, not less?
Last question, Natalie. How does she come into your life? She's awesome.
I played one festival last year as Mike Donehey, and Thomas and Monty played with me. And we played, and that was really the beginning of going, if I'm going to have a band, it needs to be 10th Avenue North, because this whole solo thing, it just doesn't feel right. But Natalie played, and she played with this group of dudes. They were funk. I don't know if you like funk, soul.
Oh, yeah.
Just jazz, fusion. They were crazy. I go, who is this chick? And so when we were talking about getting someone out for this tour, I said, dude, we got to call that girl Natalie. And dude, she's going to rip a melodica solo in the middle of our set. You'll see. It's ridiculous.
Can't wait for that. So I got one more question. You guys formed the band in West Palm Beach.
Yeah.
But you didn't name the band Okeechobee Boulevard. Where did 10th Avenue North go?
Okeechobee just doesn't have the same ring to it, I guess. We lived off 10th Avenue North, so we had to stay true to the geography.
Nice.
And you're bringing up a crew from Palm Beach Atlantic, right?
There's some folks coming. We worked at Christ Fellowship for a while, so there was jokes that we should have been North Lake Boulevard, because that was North Lake actually probably has a better ring to it than 10th Avenue North. I can't tell you how many times when we were starting out, guy would get up, the youth pastor would get up to announce us, and you could see his face go blank and start sweating. Give it up for the band. Not kidding. At least 10 times. 7th Street Southwest. Like, hey, that's the Oneaters.
And what's interesting about tonight is one of our partners in the ministry has a restaurant, 28 North.
See?
And they're actually going to be catering the meet and greet tonight, and we got their sign with some logo stuff on it. And how many times has Donna said, hey, are y'all going to go see 28 North this week? We eat there every week. Hey, 28 North is coming on September 20th. No, it's 10th Avenue North, babe.
Street
got
names.
it down.
We can change it.
We can change it. Well, it's just a joy to have you here. I know we got to get back over to the theater. Guys, just we're getting close to having our final events of the year. Of course, tonight with the 10th Avenue North tonight. Next week is our men's conference with Drew Worsham at Church at Viera. Then the following week, we're taking a group, our first ever Men Passionate About Christ mission trip. We're going to be going to do some work we're going to be ministering in Juarez, Mexico, and we're going to be there for a week, helping out with an orphanage community center from our friends, the Quicks, who will be here tonight celebrating with us as well. So, and then after that, back to our small groups. If you want to plug in to either a virtual group, if you're in Brevard County and want to meet us for Sunrise on Wednesday morning or Truth Tuesdays on Tuesday morning, or even our young men's group on Monday night at 9 o'clock, we have men from all over the country that join us there. Check us out at our website, impactministries.org. That's impactministries.org. Social media, Impact Ministry, or in the Facebook page. Just give us a like, give us a follow, give us a share. It costs you absolutely nothing. But if you'd like to make a donation, we need to pay a few bills. So we'll definitely take it. Right, Chef?
Absolutely.
So anyway, we're so looking forward to worshiping tonight with this guy, Mike. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Until the next time, gang, we'll catch you next week. I'm Trey.
I'm Mike.
I'm Brad.
I'm Jeremy.
And I'm Mike.
And we are the
Cussin Christians.
Get out. It
Your
just
microphone
flowed.
didn't do it this time.
No, it did.
Taking your Viagra.
Easy.
Was it Droopy Mike syndrome or something?